Alright, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Vyrul, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at the Dark Moon Races Hearthstone expansion, and I'm going to give you my opinion on some of the more impactful cards of this mini expansion. And we are going to start out with the only neutral card that I think is really going to make any sort of impact this expansion, and that is Armor Vendor. So this is going to be a fantastic inclusion into any control deck. Honestly, a 1-mana 1/3 is great, and gaining 4 armor is pretty nuts on turn 1, because if you're in a control deck, you value that 4 armor way more than your opponent does, and that's going to really help you survive against aggro. It's a really, really good addition for any control deck. It's going to be in every single list you possibly can. Fantastic card. Okay. Now moving into the class cards. Starting up, we have Illidari Studies for Demon Hunter. This discover an outcast card, your next one costs less. I think this is going to be fantastic into any like tempo or maybe even aggro Demon Hunter. Like some important things with this card is that when you discover the outcast card, it actually puts it into the right side outcast slot because it's going to be like the newest card in your hand. So that automatically puts the outcast card you discovered in the outcast slot, which is really important because with a discount, you can play this on turn 6 and discover a Skull of Gul'dan, and you're essentially just tutoring out 3 discounted cards on curve, which is really, really good. As well as like more aggro decks, Illidari Studies can be used to fish out those consume magics to silence your taunt minions and push face. So this is, I think, going to be a really good card in basically any Demon Hunter list. Up next, we have Mage. We have Conjure Mana Biscuit. Add a biscuit to your hand that refreshes 2 mana crystals. And the biscuit is a 0 mana spell that just refreshes 2 mana crystals. And that refresh is the important part. It's not a mana ramp. It only lets you refresh mana crystals that you already had and had used that turn. So if you're at 4 mana and you play this, you don't go up to 6. But you could spend your 4 mana, play this, and get 2 back. So you can effectively spend 6 mana in a turn, but you can't play anything that costs 6. So this is going to be really important for like small spell mage where you play the Conjure Mana Biscuit a little early, and you pocket those 0 mana biscuits, and you hang on to them for spell burst activators or to ramp up a Mana Cyclone, all these things. And I think this will be even strong to have on turn 10 because you can play out a big hand and then have 0 cost spells to keep going and spend maybe 12 to 16 men on turn 10, and I think it's going to enable a lot of pop-off moments for Mage. Next up is Paladin, the Libram of Judgment, which is a 7 mana 5/3 weapon which has Corrupt, Gain Lifesteal. Okay, so this is an absolute killer of a card, or weapon rather. So first of all, it's a Libram, so you're going to get those discounts from Aldor Tendant and the other Libram discount cards in Paladin. So it's really, really, really easy to, or I guess not really easy, but not difficult to get this weapon down to, say, 4 to 6 mana. So it's a really good value. Not too hard to corrupt because you're going to throw this into your pure Paladin list, and you're going to more than likely corrupt this with your Libram of Hope, which will also be discounted. So not only are you going to, heal for 8, get an 8/8 with Divine Shield, it'll also corrupt and give you a 5/3 weapon with Lifesteal. It gives you a ton of board control, and I think you can just very easily slot this into your pure Paladin list, and it's going to do great things for you. Next Paladin card is the Imprisoned Celestial. I was sort of on the fence about including this one on the list in terms of impactfulness. But I think if you have this on your turn 3 instead of your Goody 2 shields, I don't think you hate it. Because it's dormant for 2 turns, so you can spend your next turn trying to develop more of a wide board with your first day at school. And then that sort of forces your opponent to use board clears when they maybe not have wanted to, because they know that your Imprisoned Celestial is about to become Awakened, and it's gonna it's gonna give you your spell burst there, and basically give you a really sticky board. So I think it's gonna force opponents to use their board clears, not necessarily when they want to. So yeah, I think that's just gonna be a decent value card in pure Paladin. Next up for Priest is Dark Inquisitor Xanash. So Battlecry, reduce the cost of all corrupt cards in your hand and deck by 2. This is value, value, value. So this is like an okay mid-game body, but Priest doesn't usually really care about that. What's really, really big here is how many corrupt cards you can run in a list, and I think you can safely get away with like around 15 corrupt cards in a bigger Priest list, and just playing this discounts because it's your hand and deck. This is basically 5 mana discount 30 mana in your deck, which is pretty insane. And what's good about this is because it reduces the corrupt card and by 2, it makes it 2 mana easier to actually corrupt them. So say you have something that's 4 mana and needs to be corrupted, this gets discounted by 2 by Xanash, so then that drops its mana cost down to 2, and you only have to play a 3 mana card in order to corrupt that now. So you're saving so much mana with Xanash. I think it's going to be everywhere in every value Priest deck. Anything that wants to grind the game out, you're going to see Xanash. Alright, moving on to Rogue. We have Sparkjoy Cheat. Battlecry, if you're holding a secret, cast it and draw a card. Wow, this card is good. This is going to be in every tempo mage, every tempo rogue. It's going to be in every secret rogue. This is a fantastic card. So it's a 3 mana 3/3. If you're holding a secret, you cast it. So that's another 2 mana worth of stuff. And then drawing a card is usually valued at 1 to 2 mana. So you can argue that Sparkjoy Cheat is 6 to 7 mana on a 3/3 body, which is pretty nuts. Honestly, this combos super well with the next card, which is Shenanigans. So it says, it's a 2 mana rogue secret. When your opponent draws their second card in a turn, transform it into a banana. So I think people are undervaluing this secret. I like to call this secret the Shaman Killer, because a lot of the times the Shaman likes to play the Cage Magic Custodian after you've played the secret. And then since drawing that weapon is their second draw of the turn, it transforms their weapon into a banana. Because at the beginning of your turn, you draw your first card, and then any cards that draw anything further that will activate Shenanigans. And even if it doesn't get procced right away, I think with Blackjack Stunners and things like that, I don't think rogues will mind having a secret still active at all. So I think Shenanigans will be maybe not in every list, but I think if you want to, break some Cthulhu combos or break some Shaman's Days, things like that, I think Shenanigans has a perfectly fine place in some rogue lists. Next up, we have Landslide, which is deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. If you're overloaded, deal 1 damage again. So for Shaman, I think this is a really, really, really good anti-aggro, or maybe even just anti-paladin kind of card. The overload and deal 1 damage again, that's the effect that's similar to Earthquake. It's very, very good for cleaning up Divine Shield. It's very good for cleaning up Reborn minions as well. So I think we'll see this more than likely in Control Shaman, which is a pretty good list already in Legend. I think it'll really help Control Shaman with the early game, just to clear off some of those aggro boards that have 1 to 2 health, or those Divine Shields. Clear off your goody 2 shields or Reborn minions that stick on board, anything like that. And the other thing to note about Landslide is this is another card that gets added into the Professor Fireheart pool, so that this is just a cheap 2 mana card that you're more than likely going to be overloaded. You can just toss this in, throw in some board clear with your Fireheart. It's going to be pretty good. Okay, next. Backfire. So it's a Warlock 3 mana, draw 3 cards, and then deal 3 damage to your hero. This card is nuts for Zoo Warlock. So first of all, 3 mana, draw 3. Insane. Because Warlock's hero power is 2 mana, draw 1 card, deal 3 damage to your hero. So here you're spending 1 more mana, dealing 1 more damage to your hero to draw 2 more cards. That's pretty good. So the self-damage empowers things like Flesh Giant and Dark Glare. So, like, the Zoo lists are really going to not mind taking that 3 damage because it'll activate their Flesh Giant, it'll activate their Dark Glare, and honestly, drawing 3 cards in a zoo list is pretty insane, because right now the main sort of drawing engine for that deck is the Expired Merchant or the Nightshade Matron into discarding Hand of Gul'dan, and I think Backfire is another great way to just keep that deck rolling, so I think this card's going to be very impactful in Zoo Warlock. Okay, so now let's move into the dual class cards that came out with Dark Moon Races, and there's a small handful of those that I think are going to be fantastic, so let's jump right into it. We have Nitro Boost Poison, which is dual class for Rogue and Warrior, which is give a minion +2 attack and corrupt and your weapon. So I think this has a much better place in Rogue than it does Warrior. It's really easy to corrupt, being at 1 mana, so basically anything a Rogue does will corrupt this. This is essentially just a cheaper version of the Tinker Sharp Sword Oil. It's 1 mana instead of 4, and it gives it 2 attack instead of 4. Honestly, it's really good tempo. I think this is going to be in every tempo rogue list, and I think it's going to do wonders. Next, we have Fellfire Deadeye, which is a dual class Demon Hunter and Hunter card. It says your hero power costs 1 less. I think this is going to easily slot in to any aggro Demon Hunter, any Face Hunter, right? Because Demon Hunter plays this on turn 2, his hero power is free. If Hunter plays this on turn 2 and it sticks on board, then on the next turn he's dropping down his Phase Stalker and hero powering for 1 mana. This is basically kind of like a 2 mana tour guide, but with like a little bit stickier of a body because it's got 3 health. I don't think it'll see any play outside of those aggro or face lists, but I think it'll be a good addition to those regardless. Next is Resizing Pouch, which is dual class for Hunter and Druid, which is discover a card with cost equal to your remaining mana crystals. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on this card. I think it's not so great for Hunter. I will agree there. But where I do see this popping off is in this is a great value generator for Druid. I think you can maybe slot this into Highlander Hunter. Like for your late game, if Bran doesn't quite finish it, or it's a Paladin that got some healing in, or whatever it is. I think maybe Highlander Hunter, but I think where this is really going to be good is late game for Druid, where they've got 10 mana, they top deck Resizing Pouch, and boom, you can discover Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and drop that down. So I think this is just a great late game value generator. The value of this card ramps with the later in the game you play it, and I think that's what it should be saved for. Next, we have Imprisoned Phoenix, which is a dual class for Shaman and Mage. It's dormant for 2 turns, spell damage +2. This is really, really, really good. So this slots in perfectly to Small Spell Mage. One of the more popular combos we've seen for like Mage, OTKs, and things like that are dropping a Malagos down and playing Maiev Shadow Song on it to basically hide it, so that when it awakens you have that guaranteed +5 spell damage. This card is that combo by itself, which is really, really nuts for combos, because you can drop this down and then get your spells ready, and then as the turn that awakens, you have that basically mini Malagos just ready to go. There's nothing your opponent can do about it. So I think this card's going to be fantastic for Small Spell Mage. Next, we have Guidance, which is dual class for Druid and Shaman. It's 1 mana, look at 2 spells, add 1 to your hand, or overload for 1 to get both. So this is going to be similar to Volpera Scoundrel, where you have a Discover option, and then instead of where Volpera has the Get a Mystery, this one has, well, I want both. So I think 1 mana overload 1, so effectively 2 mana to take 2 spells. So the interesting thing about this is you don't get much of a choice, right? It's you see 2, you can grab 1 or both of them. So it's not like you have a bunch of options, but I think 2 mana grab 2 spells is going to be especially good for a Shaman. Not so much the Druid, but I still think this is enough value generation to where it's runnable for Shaman. Next is Lucky Soul Hoarder, which is dual class for Warlock and Demon Hunter. Battle Cry, shuffle two soul fragments into your deck, and corrupt, draw a card. So I think historically every single one of the soul fragment cards has seen play at some point. They're all pretty solid. A 3-mana 3/4 is a totally fine body for Warlock if you want to just play that on 3, get your 2 soul fragments. You don't even necessarily need to corrupt it to draw the card. I think that's totally fine. The other thing with this is I think this is fairly easy to corrupt in both classes. You know, Demon Hunter can easily corrupt this with their weapons. Warlock has a couple of the higher cost spells like free admission and things like that, so I don't think this is going to be difficult to corrupt, but I think both classes are okay with playing a 3-mana 3/4 that gives them 2 soul fragments, so I think this is just a solid card all around. Next up, we have Rally, which is the dual class for Priest and Paladin, which is 4 mana, resurrect a friendly 1-cost, 2-cost, and 3-cost minion. So this is one that people are pretty mixed on, and I think we can see a good enough value out of some particular cards to where Rally can be ran. So in particular, what I'm thinking is Priest synergy with the Sethic Veilweaver, the Dragonmaw Overseer, and the Nazmani Bloodweaver. I think if you're turn 10 and you want to drop a Rally and have like a really big pop-off turn with those minions coming back, I think that's pretty okay. Because you have 6 mana, then you're just going to get discounts after discounts after discounts. And then pretty soon you'll have yourself a free hand. So I think that'll be really good for the pre-side. And for the Paladin side, I think it's much more like a tempo play. So for Paladin, say you get your Aldor Attendant on 1, your Shot Bot on turn 2, and your Goody 2 Shields on turn 3. And if your opponent clears all that, then on turn 4 you drop a Rally, and all those really, really, really good value minions are all back right on turn 4. I think that's insane for Paladin's sort of game plan. So I think it's going to be really, really good in Paladin on turn 4 if you can get that curve play out. Alright, and last but certainly not least is Key Warden Ivory, which is a dual class for Mage and Rogue. So this is sort of the Jandis Part 2. It's Battle Cry, discover a dual class spell from any class, and Spell Burst, get another copy. So honestly, this is a fine turn 5 for Mage or Rogue, just like Jandis is. It's not quite as much tempo as Jandis is for Rogue or Mage, but I still think it's solid enough to include. It's super, super easy for either class to activate the Spell Burst on this because, you know, Rogue has so many options for free spells that they can play to activate the Spell Burst, and with Mage having Conjure Mana Biscuit now, it's really not that uncommon to have a 0-mana spell laying around in your hand now. So I think either class is going to have an easy time proccing that Spell Burst, and I think if you find a decent dual class spell card, it's easy to activate that Spell Burst, or even if you don't, just getting a dual class card even once is totally fine, coupled with the 5-mana 4/5 on curve. So I think this will be included. I don't think it's quite as good as Jandis, but I still think it's good enough to be included in just about every tempo rogue list, and I think if you're not doing like a no minion mage or anything like that, I think it'll make it into a handful of mage decks as well. So I think that about wraps it up for me here. If you disagree, or you think I'm missing something, or if you think that there's something here that shouldn't be, let us know in the comments. Again, this is just all my opinion. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and have a good rest of your day.